Hey there folks, and welcome back to my channel, Read with History Teacher. Today I'm going to talk about the Freak Out book tag. I got these questions from Holly over at Lovely Day with Holly. I'll give you the link to her channel below in the summary. So if you're ready, let's get started. The first question, best book I've read the last 6 months. I actually have two, and the first is Little Fires Everywhere, Celeste Ng. And I'm telling you what, this family drama delivered. It was high impact with what was going on in the teenager's life, and the four mothers in this story about motherhood, becoming of age, and all the drama that comes with that. If you haven't read it, it's definitely a must read. The other best book the last 6 months I've read, actually I read this last week, was The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. And I also did a review on that, and I'll leave it linked below. Just give you a quick overview. Basically, we have identical twins that are being raised in a Black community, a very light-skinned Black community where actually some can pass as white. Question 2 asks, what's the best sequel that I've read the last 6 months? Well, I'll start off back at the very beginning of the pandemic quarantine. I was able to download some ebooks from the Libby app of my local library. So I chose JoJo, Moyes, Me Before You, which is the first book in a trilogy that follows Louisa Clark, who is just basically a hometown girl. She works in a coffee shop. She's content to work there. Life turns upside down. The coffee shop closes unexpectedly, and she gets a job locally working for a family who has a son that's wheelchair bound. As an adult, Will is just bigger than life. He makes deals on Wall Street. He is into extreme sports. His girlfriends are the Queen of Diamonds from all over Europe and New York City. And now he finds himself back home with his parents dealing with life after an automobile accident. So the sequel follows Louisa as she's dealing with the aftermath of her relationship with Will. She's trying to put all the pieces together, let the dust settle. So we follow her in the sequel that I thought was very clever, because it wasn't this happily ever after love story where she meets the second love of her life. Nothing like that. She does meet other people. She goes on trips. She plans things. She goes out and lives. And she does meet someone else. But really that doesn't develop too much until you get into the third book of the series. The third question is, which new release have you not read yet but is on your TBR list? Well, I'm getting ready to start it later today. Home Before Dark. This is an early release copy that I got through Book of the Month out of the June box. It will be my last book I will read in June and will be part of my June monthly wrap-up. Basically, we follow a family that has moved into a house that's so-called a haunted house. They were only there for 20 days. The main character was 5 years old at the time they move out. Her father, a writer, writes a book about their experience, the 20 days that they live there. It becomes a bestseller. Now we forward 25 years. The dad passes away, unexpectedly leaves this haunted house to his daughter, who is now 30. And she happens to be a home improvement investor who buys homes in other cities and fixes them up and flips them. So we're going to follow her in her journey of trying to flip this previously haunted house and see where this thriller takes her. I'll give you some more information in my June wrap-up. Fourth question, what's the most anticipated book of the summer that I haven't read yet? Well, I haven't read it because I still don't have a copy of it, and that would be The Beach Read. Beach Read is basically about two authors that are in a writing slump, and they find themselves vacationing in the same coastal town, and they run into each other and strike up a conversation, and they come up with the idea of, let's switch genres, and you, for the first time, try writing a story from my genre's point of view, and I'll write yours. So I'm sure it's going to be a romantic comedy. We'll see. Again, I'm going to try to get my hands on a copy. Question 5 is, what is the biggest disappointment or letdown in a book during the first half of 2020? And I don't necessarily like this question, but probably for me, The Woman in Cabin 10. I read this as the third book during my reading marathon over Memorial Day weekend. I live in Central Kentucky and it rained the entire weekend. So I had 3 mystery novels that I curled up with and read, and this happened to be the third one. It is a mystery thriller that takes place on a luxury liner. Our main character hears a splash. She assumes it's a body being thrown overboard, and she goes being a detective trying to figure out what's going on. Now, folks, because I thought this was a slow read and had holes in the storyline, I am not going to let it deter me from reading any other books from Ruth Ware, because she's a teacher. And I'm a teacher too, and I support public educators. So I'm going to read another book by Ruth Ware. Question 6 is, which book was the biggest surprise? In Kentucky, our public libraries have opened back up, and we are able to request material certain times during the week that you can drive by and pick up your to-go book order, if you will. So the book that was my biggest surprise was a book on my list called the Fifth Avenue Story Society. This takes place in New York City. 5 strangers get an invitation to be a part of this story society in the library of an historic mansion. These 5 come together and try to figure out, why did we all get the invitation here? What's the connection between us? So they just start talking about what's going on in their lives. This was a surprise for me in finding that it had elements of faith-based conversations throughout the book. Inspirational, uplifting type of book. I highly recommend that you utilize your public library system. And as always, make sure you thank your local librarian. Question 7. Who is my favorite new author? Well, it's probably not surprising that I'm going to tell you it is Brit Bennett. The Vanishing Half. This is her second novel, and I've already ordered her first novel, Mamas, which should be arriving sometime this week, and I cannot wait to get my hands on it. And of course, I'll be reading it in July. More than likely, I'll do a book review, and it will be in my July wrap-ups. If you haven't thought about reading this book, I highly recommend it. Oh my goodness. Question number 8, favorite character crush. Well, I really never thought about that question. So I kind of reframed it into, if I was talking to my daughter about the qualities of a really good man, then who would exemplify that in a book that I read the last 6 months? And that's definitely going to be Fred from The Giver of the Stars, JoJo Moyes. And of course, I have to brag because I'm from Kentucky and the book takes place in Eastern Kentucky. From the get-go, he is a supporter of the Pack Horse Library. He donates the building that's going to hold all of the donated books. He's like the good guy that's always taking care of everything in the background, because we're following in this story the lives of the 6 Pack Horse librarians, and towards the end we see one of the main characters, Alice. Well, let's just say her address changes. So once her address changes, she and Fred start flirting with each other, and then somebody cooks dinner for somebody else, and then let's just say they become more than just friends. An excellent book, highly recommend it. I've been recommending it for the last couple of months actually. Question 9, favorite new character. I hope you don't feel like I'm being redundant, but the character of Jade in The Vanishing Half is very intriguing to me, and I'm waiting for the sequel so that we can see Jade's character continue to grow as she is the connected character to this larger estranged family. Her character is very dynamic and seems to be accepting of everyone's identity, being patient with them as they recreate their own identity. Highly recommend this book. If you don't read this summer, you will be very disappointed. The Vanishing Half, Britt Bennett. Question 10, which story had me reaching for the Kleenexes? Well, that would be this World War II historical novel, The Women of the Castle. So there were Kleenex moments when you realize that a couple of the characters in this story were dealing with a lot of mental, emotional pain, dealing with everything they had lost, and it just seemed like they gave up the fight, that they couldn't make it any longer. So that was a tearjerker. If you're into historical fiction, especially World War II Germany, and you want to learn more about the 7,000 men who were resistors in the German army who said, look, we don't buy into what Hitler is saying. We don't want to be a part of this. Then definitely this is a must read for you. Double check with your local public library. Many of them have this book on the shelf. Jessica Shattuck's The Women of the Castle. All right, we're almost at the end. Question 11. Which book made you happy? Actually, I had already read this book, but I decided to reread it while I was home, and that was Hidden Figures. This is actually the young adult version, YA version, written by Margaret Lee Shetterly. Excellent book, highly recommended. I feel like in science class, especially for middle school STEM academies, female leadership academies, this is definitely a must read. We follow the lives of 4 historic women who were ahead of the game at NASA during the space race, when women were fighting for gender equality, and when we were seeing the civil rights movement where blacks should be treated as equals. We have 4 very smart black women who take on the establishment in NASA to say, we're here at the table. We're ready to make a contribution. I highly recommend it. It's very inspiring. Love the movie. And at the end, it just makes you cheer as a woman to say, all right, you go girl, you got this. Hidden Figures, a definite must read at any age. And if you've got middle school students in your household, go to your local library and check this book out. Here we are, folks. The final question. Which book did I read during the last 6 months that had the most beautiful cover? Well, hands down, it is The Last House Guest by Megan Miranda. Oh my gosh, seeing this on a 2D video replay does not do this justice. Basically, we're looking out of a paned glass window over the Atlantic Ocean in a coastal town. It's raining. It has raindrop reliefs on it. Perfect color. It's just a great cover. Everyone that I have talked to or read reviews by talk about this cover. And definitely for me, this is the cover that's the most beautiful that I've read the last 6 months. So my question is, What have you been reading? Drop me a comment below. I would love to chat with you. Smash that like button and subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate it. And as always, folks, until my next video, happy reading.